for the opportunity to come before you today to present on grant writing. Again, as she said, my name is Demetrius Love. I am what you call a community champion. I do volunteer in a lot of spaces. I'm the chair of the Economic Development Council. I've sat as the chair for United Way, the chair for Girls Inc., the chair for the 100 Black Men. I just have a heart for community building. I think when communities are thriving, people quality lives are really at a high end, and you see cities grow. I am the author of the Mechanics of Nonprofits, and then just released a new book called Mechanics of Community Building. So today I'm here to really go over the basics of grant writing. Now we're going to do this a little different. I put in a chat for everybody to rank themselves from 1 to 5. 1 being you're new to the grant writing experience, and then 5, you probably can take over and start teaching this. And the reason I wanted to know, because the grant writing landscape has changed. Thanks to Chat GPT, thanks to AI, it has changed, which is a good thing. But that means how we deliver grant writing training has to change. So instead of us really hammering in on the 8 processes, we're going to go over the 8 processes, but the focus is we'll talk about the actual foundation and context of those processes, because you can utilize ChatGPT, which is great for your structuring. And I'm going to give examples when we go through on utilizing that part and utilizing ChatGPT. All right, so my objective here, when we finish this training, that you all have a basic understanding of a grant proposal. You'll be able to identify some funding sources, and you'll truly be able to articulate a problem statement and objectives. And I like giving out tips on grant writing and breaking myths and understanding where your grant writing will be strong, and then how to use the resources and tools to do that. So let's get started. All right. So let's first define grant writing, since there's a lot of ones here. So grant writing, it's the sum of money provided by a public agency or a private organization to an entity or individual for a specific purpose and duration. All right, there are multiple funding sources. So for here, we have government versus NGO. How many know what NGO is? NGO means non-government organization. So that's the difference. You have a government funding, grant funding, and then you have non-government organizations. Some of your non-government organizations can be corporations, private foundations, churches, churches, individuals also can offer grants. There is a distinct difference between government and non-government organizations. One, the government has a formal process. We know government is going to be some red tape. There's some loops you'll have to jump through. With the non-government organization, you actually have to go out and find them. They're readily are solicited, and guidelines to those may not be provided. So you have to use your network, and leverage your organizations to go after where those non-government organizations are. Now, for government organizations, there tend to be more money. I just was on a grant writing team for the hosted by the government, the environment. I think that grant was like for $40 million. Then on the non-government organization, there may be a few thousand. I was just helping my wife this summer. She's an educator, apply for a $2,000 grant. So understanding what it is you're trying to fund, your funding priorities, your mission and your purpose. You can actually create what we call a funding model. So you can go after both government and non-government grants. Your government grants can range from multiple years, up to 5 years, where your non-government grants are like around 1 year. So, and that's because the government is very transparent. But when you're dealing on the private, they have a lot more say-so how they want to deal with their grants. So it may not be as transparent. Government is funded by our taxes. And non-government organizations are funded by private funds. When you're going after a government grant, it will have the guidelines, and a strong grant proposal can get you the grant. When you're going after a private funder, relationships are everything. Remember that relationships are everything. That is going to be one of the key things to this basic grant writing class, because when you're actually utilizing your tools like ChatGPT to get a grant, ChatGPT is going to put out based on the prompts you put in. So you're understanding, what it is you need, how to structure your grant will actually produce the best and more competitive proposal for you. All right. Here's the key. When we say building relationships, align your needs with the funder. Now, when we get further into this, we're going to talk on how to do that. Treat your funders as partners. This is that word relationship. Try to get your funder as part of your process. When you have foundations like there's a Southwest Georgia Foundation, there's a trying to think not Water Gas and Light Foundation, but the electrical foundations. Use your network to actually understand, what those foundation missions are and how you can build a relationship with those foundations. So when they get to know you and know your missions and you have a partner, then that proposal becomes that much stronger. Now, who knows the number one reason grants get rejected? Think about it for a minute. See data. Anyone else? Language?
Just put it in the chat.
Yeah, please put it in the chat. If I ask a question, just put it in the chat. I have it up live so I can watch it. Incomplete information, does not align with their mission. Those are all great answers. Budget. Oh, that's definitely key. But the number one reason grants get rejected because folks do not follow instructions. Your grant may not even get reviewed when you submit your application and you did not follow instructions. This is the one way that funders can control how grants are being submitted and how they're being reviewed by simply following the instructions. It speaks volumes. So pay attention to the instructions given to you when you start a grant proposal. All right. Be concise. Understand what the grant that you're actually going for. Do not use ambiguity. Do not talk in general. Be very concise about the information that you're giving. And please, please avoid jargons. You may be an area expert in your area, but the person who's doing the grant, they could be a third party, they could be a person who's pretty much doing the first screening. And if you're trying to get their attention, I'm from the military. We use a lot of jargon. And when I became into civilian world, I had to change that, because you can talk in jargon and people, they'll nod their head, yes, but not have a clue on what you're talking about. So be concise and avoid jargons. Balance the head and the heart. What we mean when we say balance the head and the heart? A lot of times people, they figure that they'll tap into the funder's emotions, and then they will tell a story that they feel that is so dire that that funder will have to fund it. I mean, it's the worst thing. So let's say you're trying to get a grant to increase reading by getting more books in the classroom. And you tell the story to the funder that Johnny reading level is low because Johnny is poor. Johnny has been in foster programs. He only times he eats when he comes to school. Well, the funders start looking at it as is, if the books grant is enough, that the first grant needs to be to change the student condition. So you have to look at what it is you're trying to get funded, and you want to balance, the emotion part versus the facts, scientific facts. Stick to the facts. Even when you're adding connection from emotional, you want that to lead back into the facts. All right. Of course, stay positive. That goes to what I just said, balancing the head and the heart. When you're telling a story, stay positive. I remember when during the pandemic, when I was the chair of the United Way, that was an organization out of Florida that wanted to do our media and our video at no cost, in-kind service. And I was working with the executive director because we're going to use this media to actually go after some more grants for the COVID. When they sent the video over and I was reviewing the video, I looked at the executive director and said, "This is not going to work." And she asked why. The reason why, because they gave such a dire picture of where we were here in Albany, Georgia, because the COVID put us on the map and not such a great light. So I had her to put me on the call with the media company, and I explained to them, we want people to understand what we're going through, but we also want them to know that there's hope, there's opportunity, because people want to be part of a winning team. They want to give funds to a winning team. So that's how we came up with the Reimagine. So instead of talking about people with food scarcity, we talked about reimagining Albany with funds to help people get groceries. Now they're able to feed their homes. So we put a positive spin on something that was dire. And I think we raised over $500,000 in less than 6 months. So always stay positive. Don't procrastinate. Understand where you are in the grant writing process and lay out your timeline and stick to your timeline and embrace change. I know what you do, you love. I saw some of your organizations, so I know your purpose and your passion is there. But understanding the funder and making sure that you align with the funder's need, you have to be okay with some changes, if that is the funding that you're looking for. All right. Grant writing myths. This is very important because some people may have some assumptions, or they're looking, once they get their grant, that their organization is going to change. They'll be able to do more things. And with me, I have a finance background. So when I look over the finance model for a grant organization, I help them understand where is your funding coming from, because you may show $2 million, as your budget, but if 80% of that is coming from a grant, then you may not be in a healthy situation, because that grant is going to have what you call restricted funding. what you can fund and what you cannot fund. So understanding, some myths and being prepared when you start writing grants and going into writing your funding model is very, very helpful. So let's look at a couple myths. Grant writing fees can be paid from the grant. Now, some funders allow for a portion of the grant to cover administrative costs. And we'll get to that later on. We talk about indirect costs and direct costs. Most of your private funders, they do not cover indirect costs. Most. They have, you may get a few thousand here, a few 5,000 there, but it all goes towards direct costs. On the government side, there's a cap that you actually, with federal funding, you can negotiate on your administrative costs. And once we get to the budget part, we'll actually I'll show you how to actually calculate your indirect costs to get your percentage, even if you're doing multiple programs. But grant writing fees can be paid from the grant. That is a myth. All right. And this is the one that can get people in trouble. There are large sums of grant money available for personal use. As I was saying earlier, when you awarded a grant, the grant, you're being provided that grant for a specific reason, for your specific program, a specific objective. So that money, if you start utilizing that money for personal use, and when you do your reporting, there could be dire consequences. All right, so no, that is a myth. The money only goes to major, well-established organizations. That is a myth as well. I will tell you this, we made a assertive effort on the council because we do the community development block grant. So when we review all the grants, it may have been 15, 20 grants that we review annually to give out grant money for, we intentionally look for smaller grants, smaller organizations to provide grants to that had a significant impact in the community. So if you can clearly show that you have an impact and what you're trying to do, then there are grant organizations, awarding grant organizations that will actually award your grant. So that is as well as a myth. You can apply for hundreds of grants with a single application. Remember this, because we're going to come back to this. Do not cut and paste. Do not start utilizing your grant application from another grant for this grant. There's a reason behind that we'll get to, but this is a myth. You'll see a lot. You'll start seeing that more rejections than actual acceptance. All right, so but remember that. While we cannot do that, we'll hit more on that myth. Grants are only awarded to those applicants with the greatest need. Even though grants do look at the need, there are other variables that grants are awarded. You may have come up with an innovation that is going to disrupt how things are being done, that can actually save money. It can actually increase something. It can actually bring on something new that is a particular funder priority. So understanding a funder priority, right? So put a pin in that as well. If a proposal is not funded, it is the grant writer's fault. That is a myth. There are a lot of variables that can actually play a part. Your priorities and the funder priority may not align. Competition, the actual capacity of your organization to actually carry out the grant. So there are many variables that it's not the writer's fault that can cause for the grant to be rejected or not awarded. All right, moving on. We're going to get to the grant writing process. It is an 8-step process. Now, when you apply for a grant, you're going to see, they're going to ask, one, for the summary, the introduction to the application, the introduction to your organization, your problem statement, program outcomes, methods, evaluation plan, future support, and budget. All right. The worst thing you can do is just start writing your summary, copying and pasting your mission and your values. There is some lead work that you need to do before. All right. We're going to go again. This is a basic class, so we're going to hit the highlights for each one. But I'm going to give you some tidbits, some tips to get you started. First and foremost, you see that the summary is number one, right? Do not, and I repeat, do not write your summary first. The summary should be the last thing you write. All right. Why is that? Somebody posed, why would we write the summary last? Overlook info. Perfect. Why else we should write the summary last? It should summarize what you put in the grant. Perfect. Leave them with a succinct message to pull everything together. All perfect. All answers. You actually want to go through your summary, go through each step, because as you do your legwork, which we're about to talk about, and you're going through each step, it's going to bring together your summary for you. And then you're able to pull those highlights that you need from those your process to put in your summary. All right, because your summary is a few short, powerful paragraphs. You want to wow them, and you want to make sure that it's accurate to your proposal. So summary is last. Now, here's where the lead work. Here's where people miss it. This is the part where you're going to utilize your ChatGPT. This is the part where ChatGPT is going to help you if you know what this part. So I know you're happy about your mission, you love your purpose, you want to take and put all your objectives in and all your mission. Do not do that. The first thing you want to do, you need to know, make it about them. Make it about the funder, connect with the funder, and build credibility. How do you do that? Chat tip. If you have the funder that you're trying to go and apply for a grant, upload the funder into your ChatGPT. Then use the prompt to ask the ChatGPT to show you where you and your organization and this funder aligns. Summarize it, highlight it, and then you take where you align with that funder, and though that is how you want to use your goals and your objectives. You may not use all your objectives. You may have 7 objectives. 3 of them are very aligned directly with that funder. You only need to use those 3. All right. How many of you know what a 990 is? If you know it or not, yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Great. All right. No. Okay. No. All right. A 990 is an annual form for tax-exempt organizations. A tax-exempt is like a 501c3 that you must fill out with the Internal Revenue Service. All right. That 990, the IRS makes sure that you're in compliance. That 990 is how the IRS collect data information on your activities, your financial details, how you're governing your organization. The 990 is a public document. So how do you utilize the 990 to connect with the funder? Research the funder 990. Look at the organizations that the funder has funded over the last 12 to 18 months. Those organizations that the funders have funded, go do some research on those organizations and see where you align with them. Because you want to know what it is about that organization that draw that funder in to get them the awarded grant that they want. So this is the legwork, right? You're going to use ChatGPT to see where you align, so you know what to use on your goals, mission, vision, statement that you're going to put in there. You're going to research the 990, and from the 990, you're going to understand the type of organization that the funder has funded. So you can make sure when you're going through your proposal that you're actually aligning with what they are seeing having a more impact. All right, and build credibility. If you see that the funder has a pattern of awarding organizations that are deep rooted in financial literacy, and you have put on some workshops, or you have done some community empowerment on financial literacy, there's your credibility. Make the connection. Again, this is not about you. This is about them and how you align with that funder. So as I put in bold, do not, and it goes back to that myth about every application. You can use one single application for all applications. Do not, I repeat, cut and paste. You have killed your opportunity before you've gotten started. All right. The not 99, 990. Ms. Dorothy's 990. All right. So I have an example here. XYZ nonprofit has been serving the community for over 10 years, focusing on literacy programs. That shall have come about by them understanding that funding person is into literacy programs, and they're looking for individuals who are experienced in literacy programs for over 5 years. So this aligns with the funder. When you're writing your problem statement, you want to focus on the description, the impact, and the root causes. Description, impact, root causes. Now, how do you want to describe the problem statement? When you go to, again, tip, your ChatGPT, how you want to describe your problem statement? Well, ChatGPT has already told you where you and the organization aligns. All right, you and the organization, you align on financial literacy. All right, the description of the problem in that particular community that you want to address is around economic empowerment. So your focus will be financial literacy. So you want to describe the problem based on financial literacy, because you're again aligning with where the funder wants to see solutions for. And then you want to talk about the impact. How is that impacting that problem? The impact of the problem. And then what are the root causes to the problem? Currently, 30% of local children read below grade level, according to recent school reports. You have this description of the problem. They read below grade level. The other local children is 30%. So you actually have the numbers. Look for statistics when you're describing your problem statement. Again, you can put that prompt into ChatGPT, and it will tell you in ABC area, what is the actual statistic of students who are reading below grade level? If you can go back, what are case studies that support this problem? give me 3 root causes to this problem. And that's how you can leverage your ChatGPT to actually help you put your problem statement together. Long gone are the days where you're sweating that thought process out. So that is why it's more important for you to understand what you need to actually put into your prompts. And that is what you're connecting back to the funder. It's all about the funder and the connection. Your AI is going to help you structure it and make sure you have the right data. All right. So as you see on the application, number 4 is program outcomes. I have in parentheses number 5. So just like I said, you write your summary last. Your program outcome, actually, you will write that after you write your methods. So we're going to go through methods first, and then we're going to come back to program outcomes. Now, here's why. Your methods drive your program outcomes, and it focuses on the problem statements. So if you're trying to rationalize in your head what I want these outcomes to be, go ahead and write your method, and your method will start telling you, or start painting the picture of what the outcome, right? Your methods needs to be structured. There's specific detail that you need to provide in your method. You can use these 3. You can use a time or a combination, depending on what type of grant you're writing. You can use a timeline method where you have the date, the location, what action is going to be taken, what staff that's going to be responsible, and what resources you're going to use. Or you can have the narrative. Who is doing it, what is being done, where is it being done, why it's being done, and how it's being done. Again, you write your narrative. Once you write your narrative, take your narrative, put it in your ChatGPT. And then ask Chat, does this align with the funder's priorities? Ask it to rank it, provide any recommendation to strengthen it. And it will take what you've written, it will analyze your funder's priority, and it will spit out. It will say something like, this is a strong narrative. Here's the breakdown. It will go through your who, your what, when, where, why, how, based on the funded priorities. Then it will tell you to improve, to make this even stronger. Here's 3 options. And it will tell you what you can actually add back into that to make it even stronger. All right? So you don't have to. So getting the structures wouldn't be the issue. But if you did not know that you needed to compare that to the funder's priority, and you just asked, is this a strong, compelling narrative? And it looks at the narrative, and based on what you're saying in your organization, yes, it is. But then now you're trying to understand, why was I rejected? But if you're asking it to actually compare it to the funder's priority, now you have a comparison of what you're doing and what they're looking for, and does it actually cut the mustard? All right. Always give yourself a margin of error, 20 to 50%. Meaning, if you're baking a pie and it takes the pie 40 minutes to bake, add 20%, it's going to take you 48 minutes. You want to give yourself some buffering, especially when you're providing your reports back to the funder, so that, because you never know, we call it setback clauses. You never know what can happen. And so you want to make sure that you give yourself some type of buffer when you're doing your timeline. All right. And again, what not to do: avoid ambiguity, be specific. We will conduct weekly reading sessions and provide progress assessments. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Now that you know, your method, you know you got your who, what, when, how, and why. All right, you have your timeline, and you know you could do a Gantt chart if you're going after software engineering grants. So now you can do your program outcomes. You go back and write that. How much and what ways would your method impact the problem? So the method that you're using, how much your how? We use SMART. I'm pretty sure you all familiar with the SMART, SMART. Are we familiar? We do a lot for those who do who do evaluations, do goals. You know, we use the SMART method. Okay, good. Dr. Elwoods. Yes. See a few more. So I know just how deep to go. Yes. Okay, good, good. Yes. All right. Got you, Tony. So SMART. SMART is the acronym to actually guide you on what you want your outcomes to be. All right. S is for specific. When you talk about specific, you want to use numbers. How many times it will happen? How often, frequency, how often would it happen? How much you're going to decrease it? How much you're going to increase it? You want to be very specific. You have to be able to measure, right? Choose your method to measure. You can use surveys, focus groups, observation, interviews, or you can do what you call a mixed mode of measuring. Be very careful when you say it's achievable, that you're going to achieve 90% reading above reading level in the classroom. Because if your method does not dictate 90%, then that's a problem. If your method based on your resources, out of those 40 kids, you really will get 20, which is 50%, which is not bad because let's say only 5 are reading above level. But don't exaggerate and think, okay, I'm going to say 90%. No, you speak to it and you write to that you can based on your methods. All right. Make sure it's relevant. You know, don't have an outcome that has nothing to do with impacting a problem. All right. And then time bound. You want to show short term, midterm, find the benchmark for that particular area. Now, for ChatGPT, put in your smart, because now at this point, something to understand and when I was working with my wife this summer, with her grant, and I actually did some training with her on how to utilize ChatGPT and and building out her grant proposal. And what I told her, as you work with ChatGPT, it creates the memory. You don't have to go back and put in all the information. Now you're at the point when you can literally say, evaluate my SMART goals. Do they align with my methods? Can I achieve these with how I'm measuring? And are they specific enough to meet the funders' priorities? Again, we're going back to what the funder's looking for. Provide any recommendations as needed, and it will spit it out. It will spit it out, and you can look at it. If it may tell you the a frequency of every 2 weeks is good. Recommend more frequency of weekly because it will allow for your method to be more efficient. And you update that, right? So now you're utilizing AI to help strengthen your grant proposal. We're good so far? Awesome, 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 awesome. All right, all right, all right. moving forward, moving forward. Now, as you can see, everything starts flowing. You've done your background work. You know exactly what your funder is looking for. You've tailored your mission. You've tailored your purpose to meet that. You have input some information into ChatGPT, so it's working right alongside you. It's your assistant, and you're feeling very confident because you're moving through this, and you're getting evaluated, as you move through it. So now you get to the evaluation plan. There are two evaluations that you need to make sure you have written out: your process evaluation and your outcome evaluation. Your process evaluation looks at your methods and explains how you track success of program implementation, how you track it, right? You track it. Here's some uses. You can create benchmarks and milestones. You can say at month 3, we reading above level will have increased by 15%. That's your milestone. Your benchmark, that there should be a 5 to 12% increase every 90 days. So that lets them know that you have a way to look and see if your program is working, which is important because it tells the funder, if there's a setback, because you have a setback clause. Let's say I am noticing a trend that I am coming in around 4% increase every 90 days. And with that, I will, if that is the case, anything between 4 to 7%, then I will adjust my method. And I will also include this. So it's letting the funder know that you've addressed, you just not of the mindset that, hey, because people they just know that because they love what they're doing, and it means so much that it's going to work. But it's showing that you've taken a true look at your program, and you've anticipated as much as possible what can go wrong, and if so, how you will correct that ship. That's what the setback clause is for. And you want to communicate with the funder, whether it's dependent on the funds, dependent on the funder, whether you provide a monthly report, quarterly report, biannual, or annually. But you do want to make sure that you're communicating with the funder. And secondly, your outcome evaluation, don't overthink this. Outcome evaluation is simply how the measurement tools you're going to use, you selected will be used. In the method, you're showing what you're going to use. In the evaluation, you're telling them how you're going to use it. All right. All right, good question. Method between milestones and benchmark. So a milestone is you've reached a point. That's what we call like milestone. I've reached so in 90 days, I will reach 25% of my goal. Once you get to 90 days, you reach 25%. That's a milestone, which will trigger. It's either trigger a celebration, it will trigger, it could trigger a pay raise, it could trigger some type of process to happen. Your benchmark is to get to my milestone, every month, I will have increased at least 5%. So every month, when you look over and you're providing your reports, you're meeting with your board. If you have not achieved that 5%, then you'll fell below your benchmark, and you need to put some type of corrective actions in place. So, yes, perfect. Thank you, Ms. Stevens. All right. Do not neglect this section. Your evaluation plan lets your funder know, as I was saying earlier, that you are accountable. All right. All right. What will happen once the funding has ended? Do not, and I repeat, do not say, I'm going to go and get more money. I'm going to seek more grants. A funder does not want to see you grant hopping, and they may be the last grant that you may receive. Please produce a sustainability plan or a business plan. Again, ChatGPT has already built out your proposal. You put in the prompt, recommendation, or provide a sustainability plan that meets the proposal priorities and goals to my outcomes. Or if you already have a sustainability plan in place, because you already a couple years in, then have it evaluate your sustainability plan and see if it's concrete. Because especially in this climate where funding is being cut, so if you have a major grant fund and you lose 30% of that fund in mid-program year, what will you do to sustain that? You need to be able to go back to that plan. So you need to have a sustainability plan for your organization. Now, this is me going a little bit into my book. Whether it's grants or not, you need to understand what you do when your funding changes, because you still want to be able to provide the services. So that sustainability plan is very important. All right. The part that everyone really, this is where everyone it clams up in. I would tell you this. You can list the items that you need to have, that you have to pay for, put your numbers in there, and ChatGPT will actually give you a budget. I know it's cheating, but this is just where it's at. My goal here to help you understand, because it doesn't matter if it puts that budget out there. If you don't understand it, then you can kind of find yourself when you're talking through it in a peculiar situation. So there are two things you want to have. You want to create a detailed line item, and then you want to write your budget narrative. And then we want to talk about indirect versus direct costs. All right. So this is an example of Midville expense budget. So here are some columns. So like we said, here's your line. This is a line item. Everything is outlined. Line item 1, project coordinator, community assistant. These are your expenses. Your program costs and grant requests. This is very important. When I'm evaluating grants, I look at when I evaluate those who are trying to who are applying for a grant. This is important because if the grant is funding 100% of everything, then you're going to have a challenge of being viable. So you want to break it out. And then there are areas like training room that you may need to go into more detail. What does that mean? 80 sessions donated, because the program costs $40,000 for training room. You're not asking for the grant for any of that money, so you're looking for that to be donated. All right. So those are expenses. As you notice, your expenses is broken out from your administrative costs. Right? Great question. That's exactly what we're getting to. See, that question is, what's the difference between the indirect versus direct costs? Your expenses for your program are your direct costs. Your administrative costs are your indirect costs. All right. So you actually will have that. And that was the next slide. You will actually have that in your general operating indirect cost is 15%. The goal is, how do you calculate that? All right. Let's say your program your program is $400,000. Your administrative cost is $100,000. You divide your indirect cost into your direct cost. So you'll divide 100,000 by 400,000. What's that number? Somebody tell me that number. Somebody divide 100,000 indirect into 400,000, your direct cost. 0.25, 0.25 from the 25%, 0.25, 25%. So what you will have here is 25%. Now, why is this important? This is very important. Number one, remember I told you, a lot of your private funders, they will not pay for your indirect costs. Your public funders, you can actually negotiate your indirect costs with the cap. Now, let's say your program, you're dealing with five programs within your program. You have a reading program, which you're getting a grant for. You have a literacy program, which you're getting a grant for. You have a health program, which you're getting a grant for. You have an economic development program, which you're getting a grant for. And you have we in housing, homeless shelter program, which you're getting a grant for. But your administrative costs with your employees, you have those individuals actually are working in all 5 programs. So you need to split that cost up, right? So you can literally just split it up 20% you'll show 20% from the grant, from the health, 20% from the economic, 20% from the homeless, 20% from the reading, 20% from the literacy. That's easy. Easy. But let's say your health program, you have a $200,000 grant, and then let's say your reading, you have a $50,000 grant. It's not fair to take 20% out of the 50,000 and then 20% out of 200,000, because that's a different type of that's a smaller number, and that's a larger number for your 50,000. So then that's where the indirect divided by the program cost. So if your indirect cost is 100,000 and your program cost, your grant cost is 200, then when you divide that, you're only going to use 10% for that particular program. So then your split may look like 10%, 20%, 5%, so on and so forth. All right, so that last part was on the budget. When you're doing your indirect and direct costs, you can actually utilize ChatGPT to put in your program cost, which is your direct cost, your administration cost, which is your indirect cost, and it will actually give you those numbers. Because what you also, if you're doing federal funding, you actually negotiate those numbers. I think the rule of thumb is anywhere between 10 to 15% administrative costs. So when you're sharing those resources, and that's right, about 10, I think 10 to 15%. So when you're sharing those resources, you want to make sure you're in line with that. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick recap. First and foremost, understand that you have to put in the lead work. That's the most important part. Connect with your funder. You can utilize ChatGPT to have them to research the funder, and then take what the funder has, put your organization and where you all align. When you understand that alignment, then you utilize those goals, visions, and missions that aligns with that funder. All right. You want to research the funder's 990, have an understanding what type of organization that funder has funded over the 12 to 18 months. And so then you'll know that funder's priorities. And so you can begin putting in who you are that aligns with that funder's priority. All right. You want to write your summary last, because as you all stated, you'll have a good view of what your proposal entails, and you can find those wow factors that help you write your executive summary. You want to write your methods before your program outcome. And your methods, you want to use either a timeline, narrative, or a combination of both, and then put that in the chat GPT to make sure that it aligns, your who, when, what, how aligns with what that the funder priorities are. You get to your program outcomes. I just went blank. Method before the program outcomes. All right. So, and everybody said they were really familiar with SMART, except for a couple. So you want to use SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. But you want to, again, utilize ChatGPT to make sure your SMART goals aligns with the priorities. And your SMART goal for your SMART goal outcomes is actually achievable based on your methods. You don't have to keep inputting all the content. You just, at this point, ChatGPT understands, it has all the information, and it'll continue to analyze. All right. Very important when you get to your evaluation is accountability. Your process evaluation, outcome evaluation. All right. You want your benchmark, your milestone, and then explaining what how you utilize your methods. And then your budget. One part we did miss on the budget. So you got your line, you created your line item. You understand your indirect, direct costs. But now you want to create a narrative. Your narrative will explain in this paragraph form that explains those specific items in your budget that need additional explanation. You started off line 7. Then if it was equipment, the equipment will be A, B, C, D. Here's why, how it will be utilized. So you want to make sure you have your budget narrative attached with your line, with those line items. Remember, those who are new, those who are experienced, grant writing has significantly changed. And if you take the time out to understand how the ChatGPT or other AI products work, your advantage is in this class, you know that it's all about the funder. Once you understand the priorities of the funder, you can create your prompts in ChatGPT to create a strong proposal. That sums up this basic grant writing class. I truly appreciate you all's participation and any questions that you may have at this time.
So there was a question in the chat earlier that I told her that we would follow up with it because she was asking, how do you go and look at those organizations 990 forms? Remember you were saying that
Yeah, the 990.
Yeah.
It's actually a website. You can go to irs.gov and pull up the 990s, put in the organization name, put in the 990s, and you'll be able to now look at that because it's public. It's public record. But we'll get a detail on that, Sheena, and so you can send it out. And I do have some examples of grant proposals. So I do have some documents that I'll send over to Sheena that she can send out to the group. And if you like, I'll send a slide too. If you all want the slide, I'll convert it to a PDF and send it to you as well.
Yes, that works.
Hands up.
Yeah.
Okay. A quick question. So in your experience, what has been the turnaround? I kind of have a 2-part question. What has been the turnaround time for the grants? Or is there a certain time, everyone's putting in grants? Is there like a certain time? I know that they may have deadlines, but for us to get started, because there's some legwork, and thank goodness for our assistant Chat GPT. But what's some other, like, I know you gave us some good tips, but what are some other tips, like with the timeline and the turnaround time, and us to have our cutting edge from all the other people putting their applications
So
in?
I have another Chat GPT tip for you that's going to help you with that. You don't have to think through it. So when the education, the funder that my wife was seeking the grant for this summer, I took that PDF, attached that PDF to ChatGPT, and told it to build out a timeline, build out a schedule. Um, and then it will tell you, it will give you an actual idea of when you should have each area done, the time frame that you're going to need it. And if you need additional information, it'll ask you for it. Because most of those, when the funding alerts happen, when they put out their um, opportunity to request for a grant, they'll actually have deadline and awarding time. Correct, Machina? They'll have the deadline to submit the grant, and then they
Yes.
normally have the award when they're going to award it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take it, and then it will review that, and then they'll review the deadline, and it will break you out a timeline for you.
Can I also add something about Chat GPT? So I could tell like you use your Chat GPT, right? So, but if you're brand spanking new, don't just trust it. Make sure you read it and review it, because sometimes you have to do a little training. You have to feed it more information, like he was mentioning earlier about how it remembers. And so sometimes you do have to make sure that you don't just be like, oh, it's going to do it for me. It is. But if it's brand spanking new and you're just now working in it, you need to kind of work with a little bit and train it.
That's absolutely correct. Honestly, I encourage everyone to take a basic grant writing. I mean, ChatGPT course. They're actually free on YouTube. Get familiar. At this point, at this point, where can we find the site for finding the grants? I send that over as well. You got grants.gov. You have Candid. You have quite a few, but I'll send it over as well. So I'll send some prompts over. You can use the links for grant writing sites, public and private, and then some of the documents, and then the PDF. But again, I will go to YouTube. I would definitely go to just YouTube and get familiar with it. And at this point, all you really need to have a good understanding of AI products, because you're competing against those who do understand it. And even though you may be an excellent writer, it has nothing to do about being an excellent writer. It has more to do so how it aligns with that funder's priorities. And now funders are utilizing AI to evaluate their their grant writing proposals. Uh, oh, absolutely. So I behoove you to actually learn the technology.